seconds and counting.
Hey, what's good, yo? Welcome back to another video. It's Anish. I'm joined with Drew and E, and we have some rumors brewing in the Texans world. Apparently, according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, Lovie Smith is currently on shaky ground, and a name to watch is Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon. And if that name sounds familiar, it is because the Texans did interview him for the last head coaching cycle, but they ended up not going with him. I think it was either because the Texans were waiting too long to make a decision, and he's just like, okay, just wait it out or something like that. So I don't know what exactly happened with him because, by all means, it looked like he was going to be the favorite to get the job, and now the Eagles are doing really well. And speaking of, this Eagles defense is very talented and has been super productive this season. They're second in yards per game allowed, first in passing yards per game allowed. They're top 6 in points per game allowed. They're first in interceptions, third in fumbles, and first in sacks allowed. So who knows if you'll still choose the Texans, but now the Texans are a little bit more desirable of a landing spot post Deshaun Watson trade. We have some multiple picks, right? We have 2 first-round picks for the next 3 seasons. We have a lot more cap space, and we have obviously the number 1 overall pick in this upcoming draft. So we've been a more desirable situation compared to last head coaching cycle. So it'll be interesting. So Drew and E, what are your instant thoughts on this, and what are some other names you guys are thinking about?
Oh man, I am very, very excited about Jonathan Gannon. Last season, when the Texans fired David Coley, Jonathan Gannon was my number one guy of basically the people who the Texans interviewed. Of course, there's other guys like got hired that they didn't interview, but Jonathan Gannon would be a fantastic name just to start with here. Obviously, Lovie Smith hasn't actually been fired; it's just a rumor. And I, first of all, do not believe that Lovie Smith will be the Texans head coach next year. Pretty much just because he simply does not deserve to be here for another year. But on the topic of Jonathan Gannon, he's really more than just a defensive coordinator. Previously, he's been a college scout for the Rams in 2009. He was a pro scout in 2010 through 2011 for the Rams as well. Last year, when he interviewed for the Texans, it was said that he knocked it out of the park. People said that he was extremely prepared. He's very detail-oriented guy, and if that word sounds familiar, that's one of the words I've always described Texans GM Nick Caserio as. It's also said that he will work very closely with any general manager, and he'll likely see eye to eye. And he's really more than a defensive coordinator because he's just such a smart guy, very analytical based. He's able to adjust. As you see, the Eagles have been a really great second half team, and I think that a lot of that kind of comes from the work that Jonathan Gannon has put in on this Eagles defense and his ability to mix up coverages. He is kind of a 4-man pressure guy, but he is able to kind of make adjustments on the fly and kind of be successful there. So Jonathan Gannon is a great name to bring up there, and Lovie Smith is also most definitely on that hot seat with the Texans, only having 1 win this season. That's where they had 4 last year with David Coley, and most people are just when Lovie Smith was hired, it was automatically assumed that he was an upgrade over David Coley because how could it really get much worse than that? But the Texans are indeed much worse than that. So Lovie Smith's seat is getting very hot, and it will be really interesting to see how this process plays out through the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're on the same page here because I wouldn't mind Jonathan Gannon at all. I just don't think he'd be my first choice. My first choice would definitely be Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, just because of how good Jared Goff looks with him. And I feel like, giving him Bryce Young and him and Bryce Young to work it out could be something exciting and something that brings a lot of good news to Houston. But again, I'm not really focused on the head coach search now. Just like you said, Lovie's still here. Once Lovie's gone, then I'll put in effort and I'll look and see. For now, though, as long as Lovie is here, I feel like you never know what could happen. They could keep Lovie next season. I wouldn't be surprised if this team doesn't surprise me anymore. But if Lovie is gone, I wouldn't mind Jonathan Gannon because, like we said last season, anything's an upgrade above Cully. And I feel like this season, anything's an upgrade above Lovie Smith. So Gannon, Ben Johnson, even DeMeco Ryans, just get me a new head coach, get me something fresh in Houston again.
In my opinion, I think Lovie Smith, when he was selected for the job, I don't think he really wanted it because he was our last choice option. And you can tell from these interviews, he kind of seems a little bit tired. I mean, obviously, it's like 1-11-1. Like, it's hard to be energetic about your team and really feel pumped up about them. But it just seems like very a resigned kind of tone from Lovie Smith. Just like it is what it is, and just kind of getting fed up with reporters. And obviously, that happens when you're losing so many games. But I think Lovie Smith, by all means, I think he knows that he was a stopgap coach. Like, I don't think he was meant to. I think he saw himself as like the long term solution. I think many of us saw it was Pep's job for the taking after Lovie Smith's was done. But obviously, Pep Hamilton, he doesn't deserve to be a head coach. He doesn't even deserve to be an offensive coordinator right now. So, however, I'm going to give Lovie Smith some credit here because the Texans are still playing some inspired football with their losing record. And they almost beat the Cowboys, took the Chiefs to overtime, all without their rookie cornerback Derek Stingley, Steven Nelson, Cooks, Collins, and so many other players who are so crucial to this team. And they're still putting up such a tight fight against them. A lot of teams seem to underestimate us. And so I think Lovie Smith, I thought he lost the locker room. There were reports that they lost the locker room and there's players getting mad on the sidelines. And so I think Lovie Smith does deserve some credit here for keeping the team together. And maybe you could argue that Lovie Smith does deserve another year at head coach. And maybe you would replace his offensive coordinator, give him a defensive coordinator. So those are all possibilities that we could consider as well. However, this upcoming draft, which is going to be the biggest draft, I think most impactful draft the Texans are going to have, especially with having the number one overall pick in Bryce Young. So I just want to go back to the point what Drew and you were saying is like, do you guys think it matters that we hire either a defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator with the Texans most likely to draft a quarterback in the NFL draft?
Yeah, I mean, it's really gonna depend on the guy here. Is this gonna be a guy, maybe like an older defensive-minded guy who, hasn't really had much, or who really just kind of sticks to the defensive side, or is it gonna be a kind of a manager as your head coach? Is it gonna be a Jonathan Gannon, who's most likely gonna be a players coach? He has a big football background. Same with D'Amico Ryans, the 49ers defensive coordinator, who if that name sounds familiar. He was the Texans linebacker for years and years. He's going to be a player's coach. He's really energetic. Or do the Texans go with Shane Steichen, the Eagles offensive coordinator? Do they go with Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator? Do they go with Shane Waldron, the Seahawks offensive coordinator? Those guys would be fantastic too. But I don't think it necessarily matters because it's really about the staff that you build around yourself. Who are you going to surround your players with? Who are you going to surround Bryce Young with? If you get Jonathan Gannon or D'Amico Ryans, you have to still surround him with a good quarterback coach, a good offense coordinator, because that's what really matters. That's who you're spending most of your time with. If you're the head coach, you have to spend your time with everyone. Bryce Young or whoever the Texans may draft, whoever the Texans' future quarterback is going to be, is going to be surrounded by his quarterback coach, his assistant quarterback coach, his offensive coordinator for most of his time here in Houston. And that's what is really, really important. And that's what they really need to focus on. If it's an offensive coach or a defensive coach, that's what really matters.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything Drew said. It's pretty much Bryce is going to be spending a lot of time with the head coach and coaches in general. And as long as you have a head coach that is interested, that is locked in with whatever the vision is with this team, I'm going to be happy. I just want to see a coach that's locked in for the future, especially after, the last three coaches. They haven't been anything to talk about. They haven't like brought anything to the table. So if we can just get a coach that's either young and locked in or old and locked in, as long as someone that we're gonna see here for a long time. Because I'm getting bored of changing coaches every season, and I hope whoever we get next doesn't fail or does end up given the time that he needs. Because after this draft, the team is gonna have a solid foundation give give a good coach a solid foundation, and he'll turn it into a great foundation. So as long as we can find a great coach to turn it into a great foundation, then we'll be good pretty much.
Yeah, the Texans simply can't afford to do another one and done coach. Cully one and done if Lovie Smith is one and done. Then it just makes it very hard to attract candidates to feel like their job is always in jeopardy. Like there's not much job security. You're expected to win games with this Texans roster, like at least win some games. But like with Lovie Smith, of course, like how do you go from 4 wins last year and then 1 win this year with arguably better talent around you with this rookie class that we got with Stingley, Petrie, Pierce, and whatnot? This is just kind of insane how you like go from 4 wins to 1 win currently. So I think with Gannon, I don't think we have to obviously give him time. There are at least 3 seasons, I think, for us to determine whether or not he's the right fit, because if we keep over criticizing and overlooking, like we're not giving him enough time to just giving us like either like Nick Casario to evaluate how good he is, given the time to like building the roster, and then him coaching the guys that he acquires through the draft or free agency. And speaking of hot seats, let's talk about Nick Casario because he's been also popular topic in the Texans community, whether or not he has done a good job with what he's been given. And I personally think that with the cards he's been dealt with, he's done a nice job of like kind of keeping the ship afloat per se. And I think that whoever he hires as a coach, whoever he drafts in this upcoming draft, that will be the biggest statement of his career. Like the Deshaun Watson trade, that was a big statement, but this upcoming off season, that's gonna be huge for Nick Casario. So what do you guys think? Do you think Nick Casario is on the hot seat, or do you think his future is pretty safe?
I think his future is very, very safe right now. But by the end of next season, it's gonna start to be evaluated. You know, if the Texans win like 3 games next year, he's probably gone. You know, you have to have some improvement because he is the one that's building this roster and adding players. And I like you said, this is definitely a much better team, in my opinion, and your opinion, than it was last year with David Coley. And the person who builds that team is Nick Casario, not Lovie Smith, not David Coley. So if these some of these draft picks start to not pan out, you know, this will be Nick Casario's third draft upcoming. But I mean, you know, he only had a third-round pick in the first one that he had, and the eyes are going to be on him. You know, the team has to show some improvement, but for now, he's very safe because he's been dealt probably the worst hand of any general manager in NFL history. He came in with no draft picks. He came in with a quarterback who didn't want to play with the team. Then he had a quarterback who got in some legal trouble. Then he had to deal with the no trade clause that Deshaun Watson had, probably meaning he got a little bit less than he really could have if there was a no trade clause. And now he's having to deal with potentially hiring a third head coach. You know, most people are probably saying, "Well, why does he get to hire a third head coach?" It's just simply because we have never seen a situation like this before. It doesn't mean that he doesn't deserve it. It doesn't mean that he does deserve it, but the Texans have to hire another head coach because of the way the team performed, and it's really just not Nick Caserio's fault quite yet. But eventually, we will evaluate that. But in terms of about his safety, I'd say he's very, very safe right now.
Yeah, I mean, keyword being right now. It's just right now, yeah, I think Nick's job is safe. You know, no worries. Even the former Philadelphia Eagles president, Joe Banner, actually said that you pretty much have to praise that the owner is being patient because it's not often you're sitting at 1 win, 13 games into a second year of being GM, and there isn't a conversation about you being replaced. And according to him, is that his job is secure. According to Joe Banner, is that the Nick Casario's job is secure for now. So just pretty much what Drew said. This is the biggest draft of Casario's career so far. If you hit on this, you know you get a good QB. You get you have another big free agency coming up. You need to fix the D line a little bit, not a little bit, a lot. You need to fix the D line a lot. So it's a big off season for Nick, and if he plays his cards right, even though the cards aren't the best, if he plays them right, he's probably gonna be here and for a long term. But if we start off next season and it's the same old team with new coaches, new picks, but we still look like the same old Texans, then yeah, I feel the conversation will be had about Nick Casario.
Yeah, all I'm hoping for is a good coaching process. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. Let us know your thoughts on Lovie Smith, Jonathan Gannon, who's supposed to be the favorite for the job. And yeah, let us know your thoughts and be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Thank y'all for watching. Peace.